Leads come in bursts, but they do not carry forward. That's what we're diagnosing today. Scaling amplifies what's broken. Diagnosis precedes deployment. Why? Because scaling doesn't fix anything, it just amplifies the situation that you have. And then we have to diagnose that first before we deploy. Okay. Revenue moves through four structural domains: demand, conversion, capacity, and cash. Every business revenue flows through these four domains. So, revenue is a system. And so, whatever the inputs are, if those aren't stable, then everything is affected downstream. So, there's a flow to revenue. Flow, however, is not enough. And the reason, so revenue movement and flow explains how businesses grow. Constraints are where growth breaks. So without locating the constraint, every decision that we make is a guess. Okay. When growth feels inconsistent, it's not random. It is most likely a constraint. Now, this is a streamline and scale quadrant, and this is where the work of revenue actually happens. So the work enters through spotlight, and this is where demand is structured. And so if demand is not stable here at this point, it flows all the way through the revenue system. The signal enters here, but if it's not stable, nothing downstream stabilizes. What I like to say is that when looking at this at the revenue system, this is where you have the beginning of visibility, because this is where a founder can see how the revenue moves. You can see where the constraints are, and you can also see where it may be dangerous to scale. So there are four primary constraint domains. We introduced those a slide or two ago. And the thing to note is that the constraint domains actually move aligned with each of the revenue system quadrants. So the quadrants are where the work happens, and the constraints are where we locate, where the location for those constraints. Now, the important thing to note is that constraints exist only in one domain at a time. And that one domain is what is considered what is the primary domain. So at any time, there's only one. Today, we're talking about demand as a primary domain. Now, we're not guessing. There's a pattern that we're not guessing when we talk about how we diagnose a constraint. We're looking at pattern, constraints, and how the system behaves. So we look at the pattern, the constraint domain tells us the location of the constraint within the revenue system. And then once we know the location, we can dial in on the work and look at signals and metrics to confirm that that is constraint. And then we can take very focused and intentional action that we are pretty certain will align and remove blockages in our revenue system. So the pattern that we're looking at today is called signal volatility. It is a demand distortion in the demand domain. as the primary, and that aligns with spotlight. That's where the work happens in the revenue system. Okay. So there's symptoms. You've seen the symptoms before. Some months the leads come in, other months it's quiet. Pipeline swings without any warning. There's also some signals. The leads don't arrive consistently. They arrive in bursts. The sales calendar oscillates and the revenue becomes uneven or unpredictable. So how does this work? How does this work? When we talk about the conceptual mechanism, the key here is nothing carries forward. So every cycle you're resetting. And when you're resetting, you're not compounding. And when you're not compounding, you're not scaling. So we like to put some numbers behind this in Profit Visibility Lab. So we have a structural scenario. Here, we're looking at a target of $125,000 a month. We have a deal size of $25,000 and a 30% close rate. So we need 17 deals or 17 leads to close 5 deals. Okay. So when we look at these numbers, let's see. Oh, required. Wait. Let's see. So metrics, so what we're looking at is expected output for 17 leads, pipeline coverage of 3.4 times. We want 5 deals, 125,000 in revenue, and predictable flow is what we're looking for. Okay. Now, look at this. We've got month 1, 60 leads, month 2, 12 leads, month 3, 55 leads. The team is drinking through a fire hose again. And we have an average of 36 leads a month, which seems reasonable, right? It's sufficient. But the distribution of those leads is unstable. Now, this is what we call the misdiagnosis pathway. So we're always diagnosing. What we're looking at here is when are we misdiagnosing? Because that is where the constraint comes in. So I'm a founder. I see the leads drop from 60 to 12 and the pipeline is empty. So I conclude we don't have enough leads. Something's going on in sales and marketing, right? And I need to do something because I'm a founder and I do stuff. I get things done, right? And so I increase outreach, create more content, and push harder to generate more leads, okay? Now, but here's what happens. So I have these responses where I'm increasing outreach and creating more content and pushing harder to generate leads, but the work, the actual origin of the issue are related to the signal not compounding, the demand resetting every cycle, and no baseline lead flow. That's really the origin, right? So my response doesn't fix the origin. The signal is still not compounding. All right. So now applying the 30% close rate, month 1, I've got 18 deals, team is drinking through a fire hose. Month 2, I've got 12 leads, everyone's sitting on their thumbs. Month 3, 55, oh, tons of deals again. Month 4, 5.4 deals. Our target is 5 deals a month. It's unstable. It affects everything downstream, right? So that's the consequences. Now, even with the same average, so 36 deals a month, this is a strong average, we're looking at these 2 months of low deals. So even with a strong average, the system cannot deliver predictability. So we got a couple options. You can continue operating with the existing volatility, right? We talked about that before. But we know that it's unstable, and unstable is unpredictable. So we have revenue swings and no predictability. Same behavior, same outcome. The other thing we could choose to do, is to fix the constraint first, to align that same average of 36 deals a month and make it more consistent. So the result of that is stable pipeline, predictable revenue, and stable system behavior, right? Different structure, different outcome. Now, let's do a comparison. So with the volatile system, we have a lot of variety in the number of leads that we have coming in. When we stabilize it, we have consistent leads coming in. Same input, different structure, completely different results. Now, it doesn't stay in marketing. The effects propagate throughout all of the quadrants, even though demand is the primary domain. So unstable demand leads to unstable pipeline. Unstable pipeline leads to unstable revenue. And unstable revenue leads to unstable decisions. Hiring becomes reactive, capacity becomes misaligned, and cash becomes unpredictable. Instability spreads throughout the system. This isn't a volume problem. It's a signal stability problem. When demand doesn't compound, the system resets every cycle. Until the signal stabilizes, the revenue can't stabilize. So we come to a fork in the road, a diagnostic fork. You can continue reacting to lead swings, or you can diagnose the system creating them, creating the lead swings. Leads coming in waves is not a volume problem. It is a signal problem. So we must diagnose before we deploy.